Welcome back, fantasy football fans. This is Fantasy Football in 5. We are coming at you guys talking a little bit about playoff fantasy football, the Fantasy Football Challenge, actually, on NFL.com, because we have hosted our own group for it, and we want to explain to you guys how to join our group as well as how to set up your lineups a little bit here. So that's what we're going to start off with. I'm going to throw it over to you, Parker, so you can show them the screen and where you go to do that.
Right on. So the first thing you want to do is obviously go to NFL Playoff Challenge. You can just type it into Google and it'll show up. I'll share my screen here so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is the website, NFL Fantasy. You can find it there. But it's the Playoff Challenge, so go and look for that. To go to the group, all you have to do is go, since we're in a group, it'll show up as an active group there. But then you can come and search all groups. You'll type in Fantasy Football in 5 and you'll be able to join it. It's a public group. We got 3 people in right now, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it. But it's come to our attention on Twitter, Taylor, that some people don't know how to use this.
Yeah, I didn't realize that a lot of people don't even know about the Fantasy Football Playoff Challenge, but this is something that you can actually win Super Bowl tickets if you do well enough, and that's something that it would be really exciting if one of our listeners or one of us won Super Bowl tickets. I think it would be a blast. So we're going to go in here, and on the My Picks screen, this is where you set up your lineups. And so the way the lineups work is you essentially pick a fantasy football lineup for all of the playoff teams. Now that both includes playoff teams that are on a bye as well as ones that are currently playing for this week. And we'll explain that later. But first things first, you go ahead and you pick your quarterback. That'll be the first position. So you click on one of the positions, and then it gives all the available players for that position. So obviously, it'll only be the playoff teams that are currently in the playoffs. So, for example, the Minnesota Vikings won't be in here because they didn't make the playoffs. And it shows, as Parker's scrolling through here, it shows you all of the players. Now, it doesn't have the stats for the players because it'll only count the playoff stats for these players. So, for example, let's say Josh Allen plays this week and the Bills win. All right, then he will have stats for next week in the stat column, and you'll be able to look at that and see how well he did last week because technically this is essentially week 1 of the Fantasy Football Playoff Challenge.
Yeah, and it'll also give you a little bit of help based on the percentage of people who are starting these players. This is what the start percentage means. So 38% of the people who are entered in this contest, per se, are starting Josh Allen this week. And there's 2 ways to go about selecting your lineup. You can either choose players on a bye or who are playing this week. But the key factor to remember here is that the longer you have a player in your lineup, their points will double, triple, and then quadruple the longer they're in the playoffs. So let's say you pick Josh Allen as your quarterback. Okay, good pick. He advances all the way to the Super Bowl. Josh Allen's points, let's say he gets 10 points in week 2, just as he was able, he'll double his points that week, all automatically as a bonus for having him in the previous week, so on and so forth. You can do the math. But there's 2 overwhelming strategies. One is to pick just flat out at the beginning the Super Bowl winners. So let's say you're confident Pat Mahomes is going to make the Super Bowl. You can pick all the Chiefs you want, or you can go and dice it up half AFC, half NFC. Let's say you like Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. You can split your lineup evenly, and hopefully they can carry your team all the way to the end. But Taylor, there's also a weekly strategy.
Yeah, the weekly strategy is essentially just like what you do in regular fantasy football. You try and pick the best players from week to week who are going to be playing, and you go ahead and you put those players in. For example, Derrick Henry. Let's say you think Derrick Henry is going to have a monstrous week against the Ravens here in the wild card weekend, then you're going to put him in because even though let's say you don't think the Titans are going to make it to the Super Bowl, but he's going to have 250 rushing yards this week, then you go ahead and you put him in there because it's going to get more points this week than in the long run than if you were to keep a player in there who only scores 10 points this week and then doubles that next week to have 20. But Derrick Henry has 30 points this week. Then Derrick Henry is probably worth a little bit more this week than it would be to have that player for 2 separate weeks, if that makes sense.
Right, and what you see on your screen right now is my lineup that I have tentatively set as an example for you guys. But let's say you wanted to make a change. It's really simple. It's going to show an empty screen like this. These are locked because they're obviously next week's, but it's going to be unlocked for you. All you have to do is go select that area. Let's say you want to change out Derrick Henry for Alvin Kamara. All you have to do is find the player that you want. Obviously, Kamara is at the top. And then you hit Add Player. And then it would switch out Kamara, put him in instead of Derrick Henry. And that's basically how you go setting your lineup. You have quarterback, 2 receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end, a kicker, and a defense.
And then also, if you hit the little blue circle at the bottom right of any of these players, that is where you can see some of the stats for these players. So it'll show season stats and then the most started. Those are the percentages. So this obviously there's no stats because the playoffs haven't started yet. But once the playoffs start, it'll have like the reception numbers and yards, touchdowns, all that sort of stuff for these players once the playoffs start. So that's how you can keep track of that. That's another. It's really easy to use that stat button because it helps you get an idea of how these players and these teams are utilizing each other going into the playoff situation. Really,
right on, Taylor. So go ahead and join the Public League Fantasy Football in 5, spaced out like normal, and be part of this group. We're going to come up with an incentive for the winner of our group here. But keep in mind, the grand winner wins Super Bowl tickets, so that's really exciting. There are some additional prizes as well. So stay tuned. Go ahead and join our group on the NFL Fantasy Playoff Challenge, and we hope to see you there come Wildcard Weekend Sunday and Saturday.
Mm-hmm. All right, good luck, guys, and we will see you then.
Have a good one.